in the afterwards socialization sort of collaborative part of this, I'm going to introduce our panelists now. They're all people I know in person and they're all incredibly friendly, so please feel free to ask them any additional questions afterwards. We will have a short Q&A. Okay, so I'm going to go left to right here. Val Horvath. She's working on a master's in computer science at Northeastern right now. She is a great basketball player. Papa shot's a little different, but basketball. And Val used to work at Ada. Actually, when we met, she was working on program management at Ada and developing relationships with tech companies. She has background in business, recruiting, B2B sales, and she's currently working on that master's in computer science, so we're very grateful to have her here. Kate, we met because she was a TA in a volunteer class I was teaching about data structures and algorithms. She had just finished a boot camp, and she worked in customer service and editing before she moved to web development. Her degree is in linguistic anthropology and ecology. She did work at Amazon for a while, training and testing voice assistants, doing localization and language naturalization. She currently works here at Glimpse, my former employer, as a front-end software developer, and she works on accessibility and more localization, also some UI and user testing and acceptance. Chantelle here moved to Seattle from New York City to attend Ada, and was looking for a way to get practical workplace experience in something new. She has like a broad knowledge base. Liberal arts education, she taught English, worked at a nonprofit for immigrants, and interned at an ed tech company. When she was at the nonprofit, they had a database that she wanted to work on, and that began her interest in back-end work. And then she worked at AWS on a networking team. Now she works at AWS on their S3 team. Sooz is one of the best speakers I've ever met, and that's probably because she spent over 19 years, it's almost 20 years is the way that I would say that, as a marketer in technology, finance, and retail. She's currently working at Avanade here in Seattle. She graduated from Code Fellows in the end of 2018. In between, I believe you worked at Uber, is that right?
Yeah, I had an internship at Uber first.
Yeah, and so all of our panelists have worked in tech spaces, and they've all had a unique journey, and so we like to ask them some questions. I'd like to start by talking about what made you want to move into software development. Sooz?
Oh, me? Okay. Sure. Pressure's on. And the mic is off. Hello? Is it on? Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right.
We're competing with the fan up here.
Oh, I'm competing with the fan. Okay. It's kind of a bummer to compete with an inanimate object.
It's making a big racket.
Okay. Vanessa's going to go take a look at that. So what got me into tech? So in my marketing career, I obviously had spent some time around tech. In fact, I've spent time around tech my whole life. My father is a computer scientist and brought home punch cards from giant Cray supercomputers, if you know what those are. That's how old I am. And I never once thought about being a developer. I understood tech, I understood developers that did a lot of marketing of development products, software, hardware. Never once crossed my mind. And then I got really bored of marketing. So bored. And I tried to make it more interesting. I tried switching industries. I looked at going into nonprofit. I learned I like to make money. And then and volunteer. I continue to volunteer, but I also love to make money. And then I went ahead and started my own business. And I thought it'd be more exciting, and it was not. It was still boring. It was really formulaic. I'm not saying I knew all about marketing, but I knew a lot. And when people asked for things, it was pretty easy for me to go, oh, you need A and B. Oh, you don't want to pay for B? We can do D&E. Oh, you don't like E? Okay, we can do G and F. I mean, boring. And actually, for those of you, is anyone unfamiliar with what Ada Academy is, or the boot camp? Okay, so Ada Academy is a nonprofit boot camp specifically targeted at women and non-binary people, and it gives them an opportunity, and correct me if I say any of this wrong. Okay. It gives them an opportunity to study for 11 months, and 5 months of that is an internship. All right? All right. And it's pretty amazing because they don't pay for it at all. It's awesome. I wanted in. Yes, software engineers. And I wanted in. I had heard about it from some friends. I took all the pre-work. I really enjoyed it. I applied. I totally didn't get it. And I totally didn't care. And that's when I knew I wanted to be in tech. Knowing how much I enjoyed that pre-work, spending some time on my own, taking tutorials, playing with the code, making a little bear go across the screen, watching a little car go across the screen. I felt pretty cool, right? Like when you figure out even those little things, like when they don't work, you're mad. When they do work and you don't know why, you're mad. But when they do work and you actually understand why they work, it's a pretty great feeling. So, I hope that wasn't too long. There you go.
So, I guess I'm next. So I actually got into tech while working at the nonprofit. That was like kind of the impetus for me to like start researching what computer science was, and like before that I didn't really have a clear enough idea of what computer science was, and I always thought it was like too hard to enter computer science. And during college, actually, I took a comp sci course that was tangentially related to computer science, and I wanted to learn more, but I always thought, okay, I'm not good enough at math, or I'm not like, yeah, basically I started this too late, so I never really pursued it. And then I was working at the nonprofit, and they had like a real world problem with their databases. So basically they had 3 different vendors across all their services, and they wanted to find a way to create a unique client ID and kind of come up with a story about how enrollment across all their services changed one person's life. So that's like the problem that got me started thinking about like how can I solve this? What are the skills that I need to solve this? And I took an online course, and fast forward, it kind of took me a while. I kind of sat on it for a while because I'm like a little bit more hesitant. Even though I did enjoy it, I was hesitant to just change careers. And then one day, yeah, I applied for Ada as well, and I did get in, but I did have a moment when I was doing the technical interview, and there was a part of my code that I didn't quite understand. It took me a while to actually get to what exactly I was doing in a particular part of the code, because I was copying syntax, and I didn't really understand that syntax. And so like I knew how to do it, but I didn't really know why or how I arrived at the final solution kind of thing. And so I was like, I'm not getting in, it's fine. But I was so determined at that point that I was like, okay, I need to come up with plan B. I did get into Ada, luckily. Like we weren't expected to know everything, but yeah, like you said, that's kind of when I knew I'm ready for this. So it took a while for me to feel like ready to actually pursue a career in tech, but yeah, nonprofit was kind of the impetus for me to start researching.
Great.
I would say the main reason that I'm in tech is just because I'm very indecisive and I like too many things. Like Vanessa mentioned, I studied ecology and linguistic anthropology, which have very little to do with each other. Before that, like in high school, I got through all of the math classes that there were and all of the science classes that there were in the district, and I liked all of it. And out of college, with my degrees, the with my anthropology degree, I found myself doing a lot of customer service and enjoying that as well. But I really craved actually using my problem-solving skills in a more concrete way and in a creative way. And I didn't think that software development could be that for me until I realized that, especially with something like web development, there are web developers working in every single industry doing every single conceivable thing. And so I decided it was a good place to be an indecisive person who is interested in everything. So I did that, but I was fairly indecisive about it for a while. I was basically dipping my toes in, doing evening classes here and there, doing workshops on like intro to every single possible language until I ran out of those and decided I still liked it. It also kept software development kept tangentially being relevant to the jobs that I was doing. So in customer service, for example, the company I was working for was Booking.com, and obviously the main product is a website. So a lot of customer complaints were actually about the website or A/B testing or something. So I would often find myself filing bug reports or basically looking at web development from the customer's experience. Another job that I did for a little while was accounting for a small company, and their inventory, they decided for some reason to build their own software, and they didn't quite finish building it, so there were certain inventory management tasks that you had to do in SQL, so I learned SQL just to do my job. And over time, I noticed that those were the tasks that I enjoyed the most in those jobs. So I realized it was probably for me. And common thread here, Ada is part of my story as well. I applied twice, didn't get in either time. Second time I didn't get in, I was like, okay, should I wait another half a year for the next cohort? And it felt like too long. And so at that point I knew that I had to go and learn this full time. And then after boot camp, I attended Dev boot camp, and something unexpected happened. I started getting recruited by tech companies to do language-related work. Roles where I did not get to code at work, and that I could have done without going to the boot camp with my original degree, but suddenly with that credential, like Amazon thought I could do something on the Alexa team, or this company called VoiceBox Technologies worked with Samsung on the Bixby voice assistant, which I know isn't great, but for whatever reason, doing a boot camp opens that kind of door. So I did that for a couple of years, and in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, I can't forget how to code. So I was doing hackathons in my spare time and doing more classes, and eventually realized that I was at a level where I could probably teach absolute beginners as well. Like, imposter syndrome is a funny thing. Like, you don't realize that you're learning until you try to like actively imagine where you were 3 years ago, and you're like, wait, I'm in a different place, and I didn't realize. So that brings me to where I am today. This is my first full-time developer role. It's about 2.5. I started here half a year ago, which was about 2 years after I graduated from boot camp. So it can be a roundabout path, but it was interesting along the way.
Okay. I would say for me that I am also a person that gets bored really quickly. I like to be challenged, and I love problem solving, and I think that going down the tech path kind of does all of those things for me. I worked in B2B sales prior, and during that time I worked pretty much like with startups in the Seattle area, and I started noticing that I had an interest in what they were actually like building and creating versus like selling them stuff. And so that's when I started really like getting into the whole like technology scene. I think going to Ada is when I started really realizing that I might have more of a passion for like doing exactly what my students are doing. So yeah, it was like a progression. It wasn't necessarily like one event. I would say that just being around technology and like being a part of like the community of it kind of sparked my interest. And then as I started kind of diving in deeper into what the students were actually doing, some of the challenges the companies are like facing and what they're actually solving is what kind of sparked my interest into getting into tech. And then I just kind of tried to find opportunities to get into technology. I went to a New Tech Seattle event about a year and a half ago, and then I found out about the Northeastern program. And then I went to an open house and kind of learned a little bit about the pathways to get into computer science, and that's kind of when I started down my path. So.
I'm gonna do kind of a first in, last out here. We're gonna.
What data structure is that?
Be a double first or a stack. Yeah. So I want to talk also about some obstacles or challenges you might have faced during the career change and how you overcame them. So yeah, I think everybody has obstacles and challenges when a change comes about.
Just any obstacle?
Any obstacle?
Well, last year was a very hard year for me. I lost my dad and my brother within a 7-month period. So I was kind of like really trying to figure out like life. And I think that working at Ada and being surrounded by so many different people that are super strong and like pushing themselves daily gave me a lot of strength to kind of push past that, which really made me realize like life is too short, follow your heart, do what you want to do, which kind of pushed me also down the path of doing the software engineering route. I will add that I actually wanted to do the Northeastern program because I wanted to be like a product manager and I just wanted some like tech skill sets. But once I started down the path of like taking classes and like really like trying to solve puzzles, I really started noticing I'm like, I'd rather be an engineer. But I didn't know I wanted to do that until I started that process. But it's a little off topic, but I just want to say like the challenge of like realizing that I still wanted to do this despite like what I was going through that last year made me realize this is something I'm interested in. So.
Probably my biggest challenge was balancing balancing the financial aspect of a career change with being strategic about what I put my time towards. So, like I mentioned, right out of boot camp, I was starting to get recruited for roles that I would not be using what I learned in boot camp at, and it was kind of a tough choice whether I should take those roles or if I should be really stubborn about like, no, my next role is going to be as a software engineer, and I couldn't afford to be stubborn about it. But so then I like I mentioned, it took me 2 years out of boot camp to actually become a software engineer in my day job. And I guess a side challenge. So half of that challenge was making that kind of decision and thinking about those trade-offs. And the other half is just time management once I had chosen to take whatever jobs came my way. Because I was basically, like I was really committed to still honing those skills in my spare time, which meant like working full-time plus basically all the energy that I had for 2 years. My spare time was learning how to code, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that sounds very familiar to, but it was tough.
So yeah, like a lot of people, I gave up my life for Ada. Well, not really, but in terms of like your time commitment, everything you do, I feel like everything I did revolved around college. Even like the events I go to just to have fun and like socialize were related to my career, and I guess that's one of the things that you kind of sacrifice, and like one of the obstacles that you face when you decide to make a career change, especially when you're trying to make it so fast. And also I moved from New York, so being far away from family, and then I'm not that good at the phone, so like keeping in touch is like hard, and then people like age and grow up and you're kind of missing all of that. I did decide to stay in Seattle, so I at the end of the day, yeah, I don't regret it, and I enjoy all the people I've met and my time here. And I think, yeah, another obstacle, I guess like within like yourself, like to just keep yourself like motivated to continue on the path that you're on, like despite every hurdle. For instance, like there'll be a lot of challenges along the way, and without sounding corny, like you shouldn't ever, I guess, give up. For instance, I had a really, really terrible time in internship, but then on the other hand, because of that, I also found that I had a lot of people around me and a huge network where even though I had like the worst experience, I was still able to like survive that and get an offer at the end, and that's saying a lot because I went through a lot. So like even though there might be like all these challenges thrown your way, there's always opportunities to like, I guess, overcome them, and just like don't let the challenges be the like biggest thing that impacts you. Like focus on the positive stuff as well.
All that. I mean, I haven't gone through what you've gone through, Val. I don't mean to trivialize that. But I definitely have had a lot of personal health and family issues come up over the last 2 years during this transition that made my days very stressful. When I think about my biggest challenge, the recurring thing for me, both while I was in boot camp and after, is not feeling good enough. And used to being in my former career, finally, an expert, right? I generally knew what I was doing most of the time. And I felt totally fine saying, oh, I don't know about that, but let me go learn. But that's because I had this like credential and expertise. And then I was suddenly forced into this situation where every day I was like, am I a developer? Maybe I'm not. I suck. I should leave. I don't understand. How do you manipulate a DOM with jQuery? I should go now. Like I would go to I think I almost quit Code Fellows 3 times. And each time I'd go to my instructor and I'd be like, I should quit, right? Like, be honest, I know y'all need to make money, but I suck. And you should tell me I suck so I don't waste anybody else's time or any more money. And they would look at me and say, no, you're a developer. And I'd be like, no. And then the same thing happened when I was doing my internship at Uber. Oh my God, I felt so dumb. So dumb. And the way I compensated was by going and being an expert with things I knew. So I started volunteering a lot and helping people in their job search. I've been doing people's resumes and jobs coaching and interview coaching and stuff for years, about 15 years. And I started doing that, and I did too much. And I got pneumonia. And at the same time, I still was trying to do my work, study, and seem smart when I didn't feel smart. And that imposter thing is super real, and it comes and goes. I learned coping mechanisms to handle that challenge better over time, and Chantelle talked about that a bit, and I think Val did too. It's about your environment and your people. And a lot of them you find in your community when you're in boot camp, right? Because whether or not you all have the same backgrounds, y'all have something in common. You're determined to change your career. And it's a very bonding thing, and those people can be a great support. And I leaned on them a lot, especially in the first 4 months or so of my internship at Uber when I was really struggling. And they would say, no, you can do it. And I'd be like, no. They're gonna fire me tomorrow. I know it. And they'd be like, you just did that thing yesterday, right? And it like worked and everybody was proud of you, and I was like, it doesn't matter. They're definitely gonna fire me tomorrow. And you need those people around you to remind you of your achievements when you forget. And I think that's how I handled those challenges. And I still need those people all the time. I talk to them all the time.
That's great. Yes, support system is very important.
I didn't mean to jump ahead.
No, you're great. No, really important for a new developer. I mean, I've been a software engineer for years. I'm working as a founding engineer now, and this morning I had trouble attaching the front end to the back end. And I was like, what am I even doing here? So, yeah, but let's turn it back to Sooz for, so I have several more questions I'd like to get through in maybe like 15 or 20 minutes. So if we can try and do like 1 or 2 sentences on each of these, and then we can, if people want to hear more about them, we can do some in the Q&A. But I'd like to ask about a big accomplishment since your career change, or something that you're most proud of.
It's the title of my talk on the 26th at that you want to go to ACW. 23 interviews in 28 days, and I'm now employed at Avanade.
Biggest accomplishment? I'm not 100% sure. I guess like speaking up more during interviews was something I didn't do as much. Not during meetings is something I didn't do as much during my internship because like I was afraid, people are gonna judge me and I need to get a job. And then also in like just taking on more work out, like in terms of like taking on tasks, big tasks that I'm like afraid of, and I don't really know how to do them. Getting better at that as well. So.
It feels weird listing this as an accomplishment because it's very much a work in progress. But over my 6 months here, I got from during my interview saying, "So accessibility is pretty important. Do you guys do that?" to today, I'm definitely not an expert, but I know a lot more than 6 months ago, and I'm writing a lot of the stories for our accessibility work and doing QA on the work that other folks are doing. And even though I'm more and more aware of how much I don't know, I also feel confident in my ability to figure it out as I go along, which is a pretty good place to be.
For me, I would probably say just not giving up. Last year I did not get the grade that I wanted, and this year it's like night and day. So I'd say that's a big accomplishment for me.
Standing behind you. Have you ever had like a rookie mistake or a moment of learning? And what had happened and how was the outcome? Even veterans make rookie mistakes.
I don't know how to answer that. I'm a rookie.
We can skip the things that you got.
I was in a 3-month-long hackathon, and this was last year, and halfway through we realized, we thought we were pretty much done, and we did some user testing, and we realized that our app did not look like it did what it did, and we had to redo the entire thing. So I learned to user test first.
So I think I haven't had like a huge mistake, but definitely I've been learning to find better ways of like communicating with my coworkers, because I've been told that whenever I want something done, I want it right now, and that doesn't always work. So just learning like when are the appropriate times to ask questions, or like if something isn't urgent, like how to reach out, those sort of things. Yeah.
I was talking about this with Chantelle before we got up here. I have broken master several times. I deployed before lunch and went to lunch. Don't do that. Oh yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with what that might mean, basically you have sort of a playground area where you build things and make sure they work. And then when everybody agrees, yes, this totally works, this looks great, you push it to the live environment, often called master. Yeah. And in principle, the only things that go to master are things that are very well vetted, tested, you know they work. Somehow I pushed something to production, master, went to lunch thinking, oh, it's so tiny. It's a tiny thing. It was like 3 lines of code in CSS, like, this won't break anything, it'll be fine. I went to lunch, I came back, and the entire team turned in unison and looked at me with huge grins and said, "You broke master," all at once. The entire floor heard them. And then I did the same thing 2 months later I thought I'd learned my lesson, but I deployed at 3 p.m. on a Friday. And I thought, oh, 3 p.m. is early enough. It's not end of day. It'll be fine. We'll catch anything before the weekend. And we have a team overseas who looks at things when we're not awake. Guess who broke master? Yeah. So I have learned a few lessons that you will hear many times. And if I can save you any pain, don't deploy to master before you go to lunch. Don't deploy on a Friday. Just like don't deploy on a Friday. Like really, there's really no reason to ever deploy on a Friday, ever. Just don't do it until you have many years experience, and even then, probably. That's my mistake.
Everybody is broken master. It's fine. it's a rite of passage.
Yeah. There's a meetup called Everything is Broken. So.
Everything is broken is a great meetup. Really quickly, I would ask some languages, tools, or frameworks you've used, and or are using, and what's something you're interested in learning that you haven't learned yet.
So at Uber, I had to learn Go, and I loved it. That's how I met Vanessa. Actually met her on the Gopher Slack channel, and when I met her in real life, I didn't realize I knew her. That happens a lot in this industry. I really loved Go, and I was using Go, JavaScript, and React in my old job, with some testing frameworks, but pretty much just that with Docker and Kubernetes. Now, I'm developing on a Windows machine for the first time, and that's been really hard. And even though I've used VS Code a ton, that's been really hard because they use it very differently because I'm using Azure now and Azure DevOps. So I want to learn a lot more about that. And I'm also learning TypeScript because everything's done in TypeScript. And really diving deep into React now because everything's in pure React without classes and all hooks. If any of that makes any sense to you, please talk to me afterwards.
Sorry, can I go back to the mistake?
Absolutely.
I want to revise the mistake. Don't go, like in general, don't approach people without, I guess, having done enough research. And I learned this because I went to a principal engineer to talk about architecture, and I didn't have specific enough questions. And so just know that, like, if you're going to, reach out to someone for an answer or just to talk about architecture, you should probably do more background research. Because, I guess it's like gaining people's trust and keeping it is like difficult. So,
Tech stack.
Oh, tech stack. Tech stack. I've used during Ada Ruby on Rails. We learned Ruby. Yeah. And then we also learned some jQuery, which was like, I hated it, and then it turned out to be like the best project I've done because I worked so, like, I wanted to get better at it, and didn't use any closures. I really, like, it was really hard for me to grasp that concept. And React, and I did Android development, Kotlin, during Capstone, and during my internship I did Python, Django. Now I'm working with Java Spring, and I probably want to focus on learning more about Java because that's majority what my team used. Oh, I also used Lambda and Elasticsearch, during my internship. I want to use more AWS services, and then also just like focus on Java, maybe Rust or Go, because those are really popular languages and have really cool features.
The first thing I ever used was SQL. Then at bootcamp I used Ruby on Rails, JavaScript, SQL, more. And then in some volunteer projects and hackathon projects I used Python, Django, and and I think that's it. And and now at work I use TypeScript and React a lot. In terms of what I want to learn next, I want to learn TypeScript and React better.
I'm currently working in Python, and I'm interested in working in Java. I also want to learn React.
I guess I have to ask more questions. I'm just so engrossed in listening to you. I'm like, who's going to ask more things? Oh, it's me. Okay, let's see here. How about, do you have a piece of advice about where to find people to talk to about tech, or like, are there people in tech you follow, like tech leaders that you're familiar with, that you enjoy listening to, or reading their writing, or watching them speak?
So the most effective way I found to find people to talk to in tech is to actually talk to them. That sounds really silly, but no joke. I meet people all the time who are like, well, I'd like to have coffee with someone, but I don't know how to ask them. And I'm like, ask them to coffee. Not that hard. And like, I don't mean to sound flip or anything. I just, legit, like, people don't seem to get that generally when you ask someone to coffee because you say you're interested in them, that's super flattering. You know, and I've asked people who've had really cool careers, I said, hey, your career is really fascinating to me. I don't know how to do what you do. I don't know how you got to where you got. Could I buy you a coffee and learn? Most people will say, yes, there's free coffee involved and I get to talk about myself. It sounds great. And I think that that has been one of the great things that I took from my former career that I use a lot now. And it's really helped me meet people across the industry with different jobs, because one of the reasons I wanted to move into this industry is I feel like I can have a lot of different roles over the course of a career. I could be a product manager, I could be a project manager, I can, you know, be an individual contributor, I could be a manager. But I don't know enough about any of those jobs right now. And the only way for me to know is to ask people. So that's my big thing. And then the other thing I'll say is when I read articles and I like what someone writes, I follow them on Twitter. And I found that useful.
Yeah, Twitter handles. We should
Oh,
put
yeah.
out Twitter handles at some point. Yeah.
So I'm not on Twitter. I think I have a Twitter, but I don't ever use it. And I think it's been hacked so many times. But I wish I was better at social media. That would probably be an easy way to like connect with people in the industry. But I think I'm kind of guilty of doing this, like actually reaching out to people because I was interested in their company or something that they did, more so during the interview process, and I've become a little bit complacent about it now. So yeah, like just like Sue said, reaching out to people that you want to meet and meeting up with them, or talking over the phone, going to meetups and conferences. That's a good way to meet people in the industry.
Sorry, quick example. Chantelle introduced me to someone that I thought was really cool, and I wanted to know more about his role. Oliver, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the head of Alexa Mobile. I nerded out. I thought it was really cool. And we had coffee, and like there was no intent behind it, right? I just asked him about his career and how he got where he got, and you know what he looks for in teammates, and it was so cool. And it was just because I said, hey, I need to meet people.
I totally forgot what the question was.
How do you find people to connect with or follow?
Yeah.
So, for me, I'm a bit introverted, and I generally open-ended things like that freak me out. So I found it really helpful when you do have the time, basically finding a project either that already exists, or creating something with someone.
and committing to that, and then that way you always have something to talk about because you're working on something together. For example, 2 of the projects that I did were volunteering at nonprofits, like doing web development for nonprofits, and then one of them was a hackathon project with 2 other beginners. Oh, and people that I follow. Sorry. No. Lately, the main person that comes to mind is Marcy Sutton. She's based in Seattle. She runs the Accessibility Seattle meetup, and she gives talks at various conferences on accessibility in JavaScript, and also teaches classes at places like Front End Masters.
I would recommend going to meetups and just meeting new people, depending on whatever language you're interested in. Maybe go to meetup for that, or just go to like New Tech Seattle or something like that. I also recommend volunteering. So I volunteered for the Women in Tech Regatta for 2018. I met a lot of people there. So it's another great way to kind of meet people as well too.
All right. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll see if anybody on the floor has some questions, and then I'll bring the mic out and we can talk about it. I'd like to know if any of you have a piece of practical advice for someone starting out in tech, or if you have resources that you would recommend, perhaps on the internet, perhaps in person, perhaps a video or something like that. Anything that's helped you.
The best practice for me is I use a timer on my phone, so it reminds me to take breaks, because I'm very much a person that I'll just like sit there literally for 4 or 5 hours, and I don't think it's a good best practice. So I have timers for every 2 hours to remind me to get up and like go get a glass of water. For me, because I am just starting out, I utilize Udemy a lot. I also like Code Academy, that helps me too. So those are just 2 tools that I use to kind of like steam through stuff.
I mentioned this earlier, I guess, but I found it really helpful to commit to a project that is either defined externally because it already exists, or because I promised someone I would do it with them. It's a great way to learn working with people. Other than that, in interviewing, I found it really helpful to treat any interview as a practice interview. Before I got here, I was working in non-technical roles at Amazon. I was I was interviewing for technical roles at Amazon, and I didn't really want to work there particularly. But it was great practice, and now I'm here.
So I guess my advice would be maybe try. I started to do this thing called mind mapping, because I found this mind map about web development, and a friend and I would start doing that, and I think it really helped me to start understanding concepts and also test my knowledge. I would like share these things with other people and then ask to discuss them, and it's something that you use a lot. I think during in software development, it's just like drawing diagrams on boards. And so like any new concept that you learn that you're not grasping, it's good to like, I guess, draw it out in a mind map that kind of helps you to conceptualize it. In terms of resources, it really depends on the language. I think there are like a bunch, but it's more like language specific. So, yeah.
I could talk about this forever. So everything that everybody up here has said, I've done and or do. The time boxing, especially for code challenges. So normally when I'm coaching people and they're like, how do I structure my day for job searching? I'm not working. And I try to code challenge and then I get lost trying to solve a problem and 3 hours go by and I still haven't solved the problem and I learned a whole bunch of stuff, but I didn't do anything else with my day. So generally I say time box yourself to 30 minutes of problem, whether you finish it or not. It gets you used to an actual real life situation, which is interviewing, which interview a lot. It's good practice. Like, yeah, it's exhausting. Interview a lot. It's good practice. I'm gonna say that twice. One of the big things for me in networking, I'm actually not that extroverted of a person. I am when I'm very excited about a topic, like helping people get into tech. But I'm actually really not, and the idea of going to things, especially meetups, sounds horrible to me, always. I never want to go, or I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And then the day comes, and I'm like, and I could go home and hang out with my cats. That sounds great. So the thing I started doing was always having a buddy, or some level of social commitment, whether it was putting on LinkedIn that I was going and asking other people if they wanted to meet me there, or hitting up Chantelle or someone else I knew saying, hey, I'm gonna go to this thing, do you wanna meet me there? And then realizing the next day when I'm supposed to go to that thing and go, oh, I'd rather go home and hang out with my cats. I told Chantelle I should go. I'll go. I'm not gonna cancel on Chantelle. It helped me, and it helped me meet a lot of people. And I think it was one of the many good things, and yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Yes, please.
When you go to meetups and you're not a social person and not a social butterfly, just like latch on to one person. And if you're just interested if you're honestly interested in hearing what they have to talk about, like that's a genuine connection that's gonna last longer than you passing out your business cards to like 100 people you don't know.